Hello, everybody, and welcome to Lesson 11.5. Today, we will be looking at the Great Recession. We're going to start by digging into the causes of the Great Recession. Now, there does remain some debate over the root cause of the Great Recession, but most economists agree that deregulation of banking was the leading factor. Deregulation would be the removal of rules about what banks are and are not allowed to do. Those regulations were taken away during the Reagan, Bush, Clinton, and Bush years, and the Great Recession was one factor of this was one factor in the Great Recession. Now, one thing that happens as a result of the deregulation of banks is a housing bubble. Now, a bubble occurs when people believe that a sector of the economy, an area of the economy, is more valuable than it actually is. And in 2007, the United States had a huge housing bubble. People believed that houses were more valuable than they actually were. And this would become a problem. This will actually trigger a banking crisis. You see, people believed that their house value would always increase. The banks believed that the value of a house would always increase. So banks had no problem lending money to people, even if they couldn't afford to keep the house, because the bank knew that they would get their money back. If I lend somebody $200,000 to buy a house, and the person can't afford the payment, and they have to give the house back to the bank would then be receiving back a house that was worth $200,000 or more, maybe even $220,000 by then. This would be a good deal for the banks. But the problem happened when housing prices in 2007 decreased. The same people could not repay their bank loans. They could not sell their houses. And in some cases, the banks were getting those houses back that were not worth as much money. They couldn't sell them for as much money, and banks were losing money. Banks were losing billions of dollars because of these risky, bad loans that they had made. But this is going to be just the first couple dominoes. When banks lose their money, the Great Recession really begins. And it triggers a downward spiral that led many people to believe that we were on our way not just into a bad recession, which we'd had periodically, but perhaps into another Great Depression. When an individual can't pay back a housing loan, the bank forecloses on that property. That is, the bank takes the house back and tries to sell it to recover their money. When the housing prices have gone down, those banks can't re-earn their money, and banks are losing cash. Now, individuals can choose to declare bankruptcy. They can use bankruptcy as a way to permanently avoid repaying their debts. So if they still owe money to the bank, they can declare this legal bankruptcy and forever be forgiven that money. They never have to pay the banks back. Declaring bankruptcy does make it more difficult for you to get a loan in the future. The banks will know that you did this once before. They're going to hesitate to ever give you money again. But still, many Americans saw bankruptcy as their best option moving forward when they could not recover the tens or even hundreds of $1,000s of debt from their house payment. Now, the bankruptcies leave the banks with even less money. And because the banks are now running short on money, they can no longer make loans to businesses. Business loans dry up. Businesses can't borrow money to expand or just to make payroll in a hard time. They can't get the money to stay open. And so businesses that want to stay open have to lay off their workers, have to fire people. And as they fire more and more workers, as unemployment goes up, that is more and more people who then can't afford the houses that they live in. More people who then have to sell their houses, declare bankruptcy because they can't cover the difference, and the banks lose even more money, meaning even fewer loans, meaning more businesses laying off more workers, meaning more unemployment, and more people foreclosing on their houses, which means even more bankruptcies, leaving the banks with less money. This is the downward spiral of the economy. So how do we fix it? How do we get out of that? Well, beginning in 2008, the Bush administration, in one of their last acts with Bush as president, began to act to lessen the impact of the Great Recession. The Obama administration picked up on it and continued many of these Bush policies to try to save the American economy. The first one was to bail out the banks. We did not want the banks to completely fail. And so billions of dollars were transferred from the federal government to the banks. So the banks would not run out of money. Nobody need to worry and rush to the bank and withdraw all of their cash. The federal government would make sure that the banks would have enough money, they wouldn't go out of business. The plan was then for the banks to take the money the federal government gave them and loan it out to businesses. We will give you the money, in many cases for free. And now you just have to loan it out to other businesses. They loaned them money for free, they didn't give them money. But largely the banks didn't loan it out. They simply held on to that money so that their own investors would know that the bank would safe and they wouldn't pull out their investment money. And since the banks didn't loan this money, unemployment remained very high. So what else can we do? What else did we do? We tried economic stimulus. When the banks didn't loan out the money to spend, the Obama administration passed a huge economic stimulus package. Government spending accelerated rapidly. This was not good for our national debt, but it does pull us out of the recession. The American economy was no longer shrinking. We were now growing again, although very slowly, and with continued high unemployment. This meant that America, under the Obama administration, faced a very long, very slow recovery. During the Obama years, the economy was growing nearly almost every year. The economy got better and better and better, but it was a very slow growth. It took a long time for us to recover from the damage of the Great Recession. Businesses hesitated to hire until growth increased, and unemployment rates remained high for a long time. It was only in the last year of the Obama presidency, 2015-16, that the economy was once again close to full employment and growing at a healthy rate. But by the time Obama left office, the economy had recovered and left President Trump with a healthy, strong economy. Thank you for joining me for today. I'll see you again next time. Farewell.